Hello, beautifuls. Thank you for tuning in today. Have you heard the saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional? Well, today I wanted to change that phrase a little bit to suit the topic that I'm talking about today. I would like to change that to emotion is inevitable, suffering is optional. And so much of what we experience in life involves the emotions that we as a society have deemed negative or termed as heavy or intense emotions. Sadness, grief, anger, anxiety. And true, those emotions are uncomfortable, but did you know that physiologically speaking, those emotions, even the happy ones, only last 90 seconds? And I'm sure some of you are right now recalling a certain emotion and saying, no, that's not true, it lasted way longer. Well, physiologically, the reactions that happen in our body when an emotion is triggered dissipate within 90 seconds. So some of those things are increased heart rate, shortness of breath, sweaty palms, tightening of the stomach, those type of things. They all dissipate by themselves within about 90 seconds. However, what keeps them active longer would be the thoughts or the stories we tell ourselves about what we've experienced. And from a really young age, we've learned to embrace those stories because keeping an attachment to the past, evolutionary speaking, has kept us alive. But there have been some ill consequences to it. And as a result, we've developed patterns where once we experience an intense emotion, we quite often follow it with stories about what we should have or shouldn't have done. And as we keep replaying that story, or we put our spin on that story, it activates that emotion again, and we experience the physiological experiences all over again. And each time that we tell ourselves these stories, it deepens the neural pathway in our brain. And what difference does that make? Well, the deeper this pathway is in our brain, or more entrenched it is, the easier that particular emotion and that particular story that we've related to it gets triggered in our life. And the reactions usually come faster and are usually a little bit bigger. Another way in which we tend to keep those sensations alive within us is by literally trying to repress them. So something as simple as inhibiting a facial gesture. So if you are feeling completely frustrated and you are trying not to frown and you are trying to keep a smile on your face, well, what that's going to do is that's going to engage your sympathetic system, your sympathetic nervous system, even more so. And what that sympathetic nervous system does is that's our fight flight, right? So that's going to activate those physiological responses of that emotion. And each time you try to repress further and further, it's going to continue to activate that. So it feels like the emotion is going on for a really long time. However, it's in 90-second cycles. So when you are repeating the cycle over and over, it feels like an extended long time. Sometimes there's also a tendency to ruminate about the emotion, and rumination is really just a loop of thoughts. So it's a little bit different than the stories we tell ourselves, but it's the recurring thought, right? The stories is the meaning we make from it, and the loop is the replaying of the story. And when you think about that, every time that thought comes back around, it's bound to trigger that emotion and the physiological experience that you're having. And so it feels like a really long time. So how do you avoid ruminating? Well, Stanford did this huge research project, and what they figured out was the best way to interrupt the I just lost my word. The rumination pattern, was to go out in nature. And we've talked about this many times. Nature has many healing aspects, but that is a surefire way to interrupt that loop. So the next time that you feel an emotion and it feels like it's lasting for forever or longer than 90 seconds, some questions to ask yourself. Can you remember when the emotion started? And it probably was pretty recent. Have you been trying to repress that emotion? Have you been trying to hide it or push it away? What story are you telling yourself about what happened? And these all will give you insights and hopefully extract you from the situation just long enough that you can actually feel that emotion and let it pass. So again, just a tidbit today from Marty, a rambling. And until we speak again, stay hydrated, nourished, and well rested.